My name is Hannah Brooks, and I was 38 years old the morning my mother showed up at my front door with a moving truck, a locksmith, and a woman carrying a clipboard. The woman with the clipboard was a realtor. The locksmith looked uncomfortable. My mother looked excited, and my younger sister Chloe looked like she had already spent the money. The strange part? None of them knew the house belonged to me. Not legally, not temporarily, not until the estate settles. It had belonged to me for almost 5 years, and by the time they figured that out, half the neighborhood would be standing there watching. But this story doesn't start on that morning. It starts 10 years earlier, back when I was still the daughter who understood, or at least that's what everyone called me. Chloe was my mother's favorite. Nobody said it out loud. They didn't have to. You could see it in the little things. If Chloe forgot to pay a bill, Mom helped. If I forgot to pay a bill, Mom reminded me to be responsible. If Chloe quit a job, she needed support. If I worked 70-hour weeks, that was simply expected. By the time I turned 28, I'd spent my whole life being praised for surviving things nobody should have had to survive. You're so strong. You're so independent. You'll be fine. People think those are compliments. Sometimes they're just excuses. The breaking point came on my 28th birthday. I planned one dinner, one evening, nothing extravagant, a private room at a small restaurant, 8 people, just family. I paid for everything myself. A week before the dinner, everyone confirmed. For the first time in years, I let myself get excited. Then, 2 days before the reservation, Chloe announced a crisis. Her boyfriend had dumped her. At least that's what she claimed. Suddenly, every conversation became about Chloe. Every phone call, every text, every ounce of attention. The morning of my birthday, Mom called. "Hannah, sweetheart, we're going to stay with Chloe tonight." I stood in my apartment kitchen staring at the wall. Why? She's having a really hard time. And I'm not? Silence. Then came the sentence that changed my life. "You're stronger than she is." Just like that. 28 years summarized in 5 words. You're stronger than she is. I hung up, canceled the reservation, lost my deposit, packed 2 suitcases, and left town the next morning. I didn't announce it. I didn't post about it. I simply disappeared. Nobody came looking, not for weeks. And by then, I had already started over. 3 hours away sat a small lakeside town where my grandmother Eleanor had lived before she passed. Most people remembered her as quiet. I remembered her differently. She noticed things, especially things other people ignored, like me. A year before she died, she gave me an old wooden box. She told me not to open it unless I truly needed to. At the time, I thought it was sentimental. After all, what could possibly be inside? I put it in a closet and forgot about it until the birthday, until the phone call, until I realized I had nowhere left to go. That night in a cheap motel, I opened the box. Inside was a handwritten letter and a key. The letter changed everything because my grandmother had been keeping a secret nobody else in the family knew, not even my mother, especially not my mother. Years earlier, Eleanor had quietly purchased a small lake house. Not a mansion, not luxury, just a modest property on a few acres of land. The deed wasn't in her name anymore. It wasn't in my mother's name. It wasn't in Chloe's. It was in a trust designed to transfer ownership directly to me when I turned 30. The date had already passed. The house was legally mine. I read the letter 3 times, then 4, then 5. I couldn't believe it. My grandmother had seen everything. The favoritism, the neglect, the endless excuses, and she had done the only thing she could think of. She made sure I'd always have somewhere to go. I drove to the property the next day. The place was falling apart. Broken shutters, overgrown grass, leaking roof. Half the dock had collapsed into the lake. Most people would have seen a disaster. I saw freedom. For the next 7 years, I rebuilt it, one paycheck at a time, one repair at a time. I worked mornings at a veterinary clinic, evenings fixing the house, weekends landscaping. I learned plumbing from YouTube videos, roofing from retired contractors, electrical work from books. The transformation was slow, painfully slow, but every year it improved, and every year my life improved with it. Meanwhile, Chloe's life followed a different pattern. New job, quit, new relationship, drama, new opportunity, failure, repeat. Every crisis ended the same way, my mother rescuing her, every single time. Then something happened nobody expected. My mother's second husband died. He left behind substantial assets, savings, investments, insurance money, and suddenly inheritance became the family obsession. Phone calls started, meetings, conversations. plans, who gets what, who deserves what, who should receive more. The interesting thing about money is that it reveals people, especially people who think they deserve it. Chloe became obsessed. Mom wasn't much better. I stayed out of it. I had my house, my work, my peace. Then Mom discovered something. The lake house. Not the ownership, just the property. She saw photos online, the renovations, the gardens, the dock, the value. And for the first time in years, she became interested in me. Phone calls increased. Messages appeared. Suddenly she wanted to reconnect. I knew why. People who ignore you for years don't suddenly become curious. They're usually calculating. Then came the funeral. My uncle passed unexpectedly. At the reception afterward, I overheard something. Mom and Chloe talking near the refreshments table. I wasn't supposed to hear it. Once we combine everything, Chloe said, we can sell Hannah's place too. Mom nodded. Exactly. My stomach dropped. Sell my place? Then I understood. They thought the lake house belonged to the family. Somehow they believed it was part of a future inheritance. They had already included it in their plans. I didn't correct them. Not then. I simply listened and waited. Months passed. The conversations continued. The assumptions grew. The plans became more detailed. Then one morning I received a call from a neighbor. Hannah, he said, you might want to come home. Why? Because there's a moving truck in your driveway. I drove back immediately, and there they were. Mom, Chloe, a realtor, a locksmith, standing on my property. My mother smiled when she saw me. Perfectly calm, perfectly confident. Hannah, she said, good, you're here. I looked at the truck, then at the locksmith, then at the realtor. What is this? She laughed. Oh, sweetheart, don't make this difficult. Difficult, that word, the favorite word of people causing problems. The realtor stepped forward. We're preparing the property for sale. I almost laughed. Preparing the property for sale. My property. The one I'd spent 7 years rebuilding. The one I'd paid taxes on. The one I legally owned. I glanced around. Several neighbors were watching, including Mr. Peterson from next door, and Mrs. Reynolds across the road. Word travels fast in small towns. A crowd was forming. Good. That made what happened next much easier. Mom, I said, who told you this house belongs to you? Her smile faded slightly. Family property belongs to family? No. I shook my head. That's not what I asked. The realtor looked nervous. The locksmith looked ready to leave. My mother crossed her arms. It came from your grandmother. Yes. So it's family property? No. The silence stretched. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out a folder, and handed it to the realtor. She opened it, read the first page, then the second, then the third. The color drained from her face. What is it? Mom asked. The realtor swallowed. Mrs. Brooks? What? This property belongs to Hannah. The words landed like a bomb. Nobody spoke. Not immediately. Then Chloe laughed. An awkward little laugh. That's ridiculous. The realtor handed her the paperwork. Chloe read, then read again, then stared. Because legal documents don't care about feelings. The trust was valid. The transfer was valid. The ownership was valid. Everything had been finalized years ago, long before anyone started making plans. My mother looked at me. For the first time all morning, she seemed unsure. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at her carefully. Because the answer mattered. Because you never asked about me. The silence after that felt enormous. The neighbors heard every word. So did the locksmith. So did the realtor. And suddenly, the story my mother had spent years telling everyone stopped working. The story where I was selfish. The story where I abandoned the family. The story where Chloe was the victim. Reality had arrived. And reality was stronger. My mother tried one last time. We're family. I nodded. We're related. There's a difference. Chloe started crying. Nobody moved. Nobody rushed over. Nobody treated it like an emergency. For the first time in her life, tears didn't change the outcome. My mother looked around at the neighbors, at the realtor, at the paperwork, at the moving truck she had rented, and she finally realized there was nothing left to argue. The house wasn't hers. It never had been. The truck left first, then the locksmith, then the realtor. Finally, Mom and Chloe climbed into their car. Before closing the door, Mom looked at me. I expected anger. Instead, I saw confusion, like she genuinely couldn't understand why things hadn't worked. Then they drove away. And just like that, it was over. No courtroom, no screaming match, no dramatic revenge, just truth. Simple truth. The strongest thing in the world. That happened almost 2 years ago. I haven't spoken to Chloe since. Mom sends a Christmas card every year. I send one back. That's enough. The lake house is thriving. The gardens are bigger, the dock is stronger, and every evening I sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and watch the sunset over the water. Sometimes I think about my grandmother, about the wooden box, about the key, about the letter she wrote years before anyone knew what was coming. She couldn't stop people from choosing choosing favorites. She couldn't stop people from being unfair, but she could make sure I'd always have a place where none of that mattered. And in the end, that gift was worth more than any inheritance. Because houses are built from wood, homes are built from peace. And after spending most of my life begging to be included, peace turned out to be the thing I wanted most.